All right, YouTube. Indiana is fast becoming like the foremost proponent of the Second Amendment as far as the states are concerned. And like a few cycles ago, they're like, sort of considered swing state. Now they're fairly red again. It's like a tale out of Georgia or Arkansas. People thought, oh, Clinton might carry this state. And it was never a possibility. Like I said that during the primaries, others were saying that if they had any sense. Other people were like, no, the whole map goes blue, like Texas will go blue or something. Indiana has just made an interesting court decision. And you won't hear much about this from the corporate media as far as like the CNNs or MSNBCs go. Why? Because the person involved in this case, per Second Amendment, is a black individual. Now, what apparently happened is that this particular dude was carrying a firearm, just a handgun, dropped it actually like getting into a taxi. Taxi driver sees it, says, "Oh shit, he's about to commit a crime because he's got a gun," and got arrested for this. Now, here is a black individual. Keep this in mind because again, you're not going to hear it. If MSNBC talks about it at all, they won't mention his race and how his Second Amendment rights are just as protected as any fucking white individual in the country. Drops his handgun, gets arrested. His claim is, well, I'm carrying a firearm. It's perfectly legal to do so. They detained and questioned and tried to arrest me just for having a firearm on me. The Supreme Court of Indiana said, no, you can't do that. Simply having a firearm is not in itself suspicion of committing a crime. And they made an interesting aside here that the Fourth Amendment, the right to privacy, explicitly overlaps with the Second Amendment, protecting it further. And means, yeah, you have the right to carry this firearm. It's not in and of itself, having that firearm is not some major aggravating factor that should lead anybody around you to have a reasonable, and that's the threshold, a reasonable cause for concern because carrying a firearm is legal. So here you have an individual, a black individual being abused as per his Second Amendment rights, and his rights are upheld by the court. Now, did you read this and did you even know that this happened, that this decision was made? In order to take it further, they'd have to bring it to the Supreme Court, and their decision would be upheld there. I'd like to, by the way, see that happen. I'd like to see somebody try to drag it to the Supreme Court so that the Supreme Court can make it clear on a national level, yes, indeed, carrying a firearm is not a crime. It's perfectly legal. You're part of the militia if you're a citizen of the United States anyway. You have that right, concealed carry, open carry, and so forth. Here in this state, they recognize that. The only significant gun legislation we ever had was a suppressor ban. And that's been ended by it. They did away with that. We have no gun control, essentially, in the state of Vermont. You can concealed carry, no permit. We've got constitutional carry. You can open carry. You can have a gun unmounted on the back of your car. You can have a so-called assault rifle, which is a sporting rifle. It's not a military weapon. You can do all sorts of, you can have the suppressors now. And that's good. By the way, the Hearing Protection Act, I don't think that's already passed yet. They should shove that through. Trump, by the way, you can think what you want about him on like fiscal right endeavors or whatever. He's actually the strongest proponent of the Second Amendment that we've had in that office for many, many decades. Like Ronald Reagan doesn't approach that level of pro-Second Amendment. That's a good thing, by the way. That's really endeared him. He makes a speech to the NRA, first president to do that since Reagan, and I applaud him on that. I think he should go even further. I think he should rescind all the gun bans and disarmament regulations and crap from the earlier atomic era. Do away with that as well. Let's return to people being able to defend themselves properly. It'd be a more polite society. Yeah, the gun crime rate will actually drop. It'll drop because all those criminals that break into people's homes in some of these nanny states, that currently the homeowner just has to like sit there and bend over and hope that they don't get killed because they're not allowed to defend themselves. They'll finally be able to do so, and then those criminals will be off the streets. They'll be in prison or in the hospital or in a grave. Good riddance to them. Who fucking cares? States like Maryland, oh, you only have 7 bullets in this gun. If you have more than that, you're committing a crime. And a lot of people said, fuck yourself. They refused to comply. I can't wait for that to go before the Supreme Court. But the state of Indiana also has other interesting approaches to gun control and so forth. Like castle doctrine. There was a case, I think, half a decade ago, where the Indiana Supreme Court, I believe, had to weigh in on on something that had been done. A police officer who went rogue, who was not acting under any command by their superiors at the time, or any state prosecutor saying yes, raid this home, decided to barge into somebody's home and was shot. And naturally, they said, well, he shot a police officer. Well, that's illegal. The officer showed up and without a warrant. Without any warning, without any, command or legal framework to do so, shows up, decides to break into somebody's home to harass them, to, I guess, kill them or something, and gets shot, gets killed. And they said, no, castle doctrine applies to police officers too. Yeah, if some random rogue agent, not showing you a warrant, shows up at your home and tries to invade your home, you're under no responsibility not to defend yourself just because they happen to be a police officer. And that's something that should be applauded by the left too. They're always talking about, the minority community got abused by this police officer. This rogue officer, he punches pregnant women, breaks into people's homes and randomly tases them, and throws babies through the window and shit, never gets fired. It's just such a huge problem. And yet they want to deny the average citizen the right to defend themselves in such a situation, and throw them in jail for defending themselves. It's fucking retarded. The Second Amendment needs to be, it needs to be more expansive, not less. Not only do we not need more gun control, because it won't do anything, it'll probably raise the crime rate. We've got too much already. We should be rescinding more gun control. And we should be making it clear that states and municipalities that have this top-heavy gun control, they're subjugated to the Second Amendment too. That decision's already sort of been made. But it makes it harder because each of these individual cases in all of these states have to be fucking dragged through the court system over and over again. So it's like a patchwork of gun laws that you have in this country where some states are openly violating the Second Amendment rights of their citizens despite prior cases making, I believe it was McDonald's versus Chicago, but it may have been a different case. Making it clear, yes, the states are subject to the Second Amendment. They cannot wantonly abuse. They are not given the power to abuse the rights of the citizens on that token. Any more than, by the way, the people who want states to be able to enact further gun control, and they're like, oh, only the federal government's constrain the Second Amendment. If this liberal state wants to take away everyone's guns, like California or Maryland, or Virginia, that's fucking okay. Terry McAuliffe there with the expanded magazine ban, or whatever the fuck he wants to call it. They don't even use the right terminology. These assault rifles. Military, fully automatic baby killers, 9,000 million rounds a second and stuff. The thing is, it's already been decided that they're subject to the Second Amendment too. And the same left that has no problem with them the states abusing people on that token. What if they were to say, oh yeah, free speech, that's a federal thing. We can determine what you can and cannot say within our state. We can, some red state shows up and says, oh, we don't want homosexuals to talk about homosexuality in our state. That's a federal thing, so, we can regulate that. We can fine people, throw them in jail for being, gay advocates or something. Well, all of these people that say that they're so far left, their heads would explode. Well, then why is the Second Amendment any different? It's the same fucking concept. So Indiana made a good decision. This is very good. This is a black individual that was bereaved temporarily of their rights simply because they carried a firearm. The argument was, well, they dropped the gun, and so the taxi driver thought he was going to be robbed. Carrying a firearm and accidentally dropping something's not against the law. Carrying a firearm's not against the law. I see people open carrying on a fairly regular basis around here. We have an extremely low violent crime rate, an extremely low gun crime rate especially. So if there's a shooting in this state, it's front page news automatically. I know it's not in a lot of states. Yeah, I remember the news in Florida when I was in the Tampa area. And every day it was like there was several people were shot basically every day. And it was it wasn't like a major announcement, man has been shot. It was more like, oh yeah, here are today's shootings. Here are today's robberies and rapes and so forth. Here's the laundry list of people who were criminally assaulted today and the number of businesses that burned down because somebody attacked them and was robbing them and, lighting a cigarette next to the gas pumps or something like that. I mean, it was insane. It was like, it almost sounded like anarchism to me. Like these big cities are so overrun with crime that it's almost an anarchic situation, like a state of emergency. We would declare a state of emergency if we had to deal with the amount of crime of some of these urban centers in the country, up here in northern New England. Our main crisis is opiate related and suicide from seasonal affective disorder because it's so fucking bleak and snowy, 8 months out of the year up here. But we've got almost no gun control, and we have low gun crime. I see people with guns, and I'm mindful of the fact that a lot of the people that I see any day are probably concealed carrying too. You're not even seeing their firearm. They've got a handgun or something akin to it, but you're not going to see it actually. And it doesn't cause a problem. People don't flip their lid around here when they see somebody carrying an assault rifle. They're open carrying. Who fucking cares? Second Amendment, they've got the right to do that. If it makes you uncomfortable, you don't have to be around them. You don't have the right to tell them what they can and cannot do in defending themselves. Just because you think that they're scary. They're like weapons of war and stuff, man. Well, that's fucking retarded. You might as well say, oh, well, people can't wear camouflage now either. They can't wear camouflage or, wear a helmet as a joke or a gas mask or something. Because this is like war stuff and it makes me uncomfortable. It reminds me of my great-granddaddy in the trenches in World War I and how he got like mustard gas attacked and stuff like that. And so I've got like genetic PTSD. I know that's the new terminology that the new speakers are trying to evolve in society right now. It's, oh yeah, it's like genetic trauma or something like that. Which it's not real, but it's not genetic. It's a behavioral thing. You've taught people to be afraid, and that's one of the biggest problems in our society. We teach people to be offended and afraid instead of doing what the fuck they're supposed to be doing. Do what you want. If someone says, oh, I'm offended at, X, Y, who fucking cares if you're offended? Who cares? You might care. I'm not paid enough to care. If you pay me, I'll pretend to care that you're offended at what I say or what I do. Otherwise, I'm not going to do jack shit about it. I'm going to keep doing it, and you're going to keep being offended. Well, it's like on the internet, speech on the internet. If you're offended by a video someone's made, or a post they made on Twitter, or a picture they slapped onto Facebook, then don't look at it. Don't share it around. You've got that. Go make your own rebuttal to it, if you're coherent enough to do so. If not, ignore it. Ta-da, problem solved. You don't have to be offended. You're not looking at it anymore. It's as simple as that. These people, they'd go to like a comedy tour, they'd be offended at that. Go to a punk show, they'd be offended. Can you imagine some G.G. Allen revival band and all the punks show up and they don't know what it is. And they all storm out, oh, it's sexist, it's racist, it's evil. He's saying bad things. Well, yeah, that's sort of the point, to piss people off. As far as Indiana goes, though, this is a point from the Constitution itself. The Second Amendment applies to the states. It applies to townships and counties as well. You have Second Amendment rights. You are part of the militia. All these new speakers that want to say that's talking about the military are so stupid that they haven't even studied U.S. history enough to know that when that was penned, there was no standing military, and most of the people who were involved in crafting the Constitution in the first place, they didn't even want the U.S. to have a standing military. They didn't want that to happen. It'd be like making the argument, oh, well, because we have the internet now for people to speak with one another, we no longer need free speech in public because speaking is antiquated. Or in your mail, your private correspondence, or books, radio, TV. Fuck all that shit because we've got, like, modern tech. Or they could make the argument, like they make with guns. They'd say, the Second Amendment applies to, like, muskets and grape shot and stuff. Okay, then speech only applies to the stuff that you're writing with a fountain pen, by candlelight, by your window as you look out upon the 1700s cornfield outside of your home, or something like that. Yeah, First Amendment doesn't apply to the internet. Sorry, people, you can't push your agenda online anymore because the founders didn't have the internet. Something like that. Well, by that token, what about the 10th Amendment? A lot of the states that exist now didn't exist back then. Maybe they only meant the 10th Amendment to apply to the original 13 colonies. Have you ever thought about that? Or the right to privacy, it means that people can't storm into your home. All the other spying, that's fine. They can send a drone into your home to monitor you. They can hook a camera up onto your wall, 1984 style, because the founders didn't have video cameras. Okay, that's fine. You can wiretap anybody you want because they didn't have telephones either back then. Yeah, it's madness when they try to make these arguments. The fact is, there are people, they're classically educated, they're academically trained, and they still make that mistake. because of their own bias. They've led themselves off into delusional la-la land. Notice, black citizen gets bereaved of the Second Amendment right for that moment in time. Gets upheld in court. Now they're saying, no, it doesn't. You know, magically, if CNN were looking into this, they'd say, oh, we're so surprised. We would have expected that the court, you know, especially in a red state, they would have said a black citizen, oh, doesn't have any rights or something. Because my racism, or white privilege. You know, if you're white, nobody cares. If you're black, it's a big problem. No, the Indiana Supreme Court disagrees with you. Good luck overriding it now. Take it to the U.S. Supreme Court, see what happens. You'll see this go nationwide. And then they'll stop your confiscation once and for all. And praise Trump, at least on the Second Amendment. He's doing a good job on that token. I would say in a more objective sense. That's about all. Peace out.